Some crimes don't announce themselves with chaos. They begin quietly, in familiar places, on ordinary days. On a Friday afternoon in February 1997, in a quiet village in England, a 14-year-old girl stepped into her own backyard. She never came back inside. For years, her name became a question mark. For decades, her case became a wound that never closed. And for more than 25 years, the truth stayed just out of reach. This is the story of Billie-Jo Jenkins, a case shaped by suspicion, mistakes, silence, and an answer that came far too late. Billie-Jo Jenkins was 14 years old. She was quiet, thoughtful, and creative, the kind of teenager who kept parts of herself private. She loved writing. She kept a diary. She drew. She thought deeply, sometimes too deeply for her age. Life hadn't been easy. Billie-Jo had been adopted after experiencing instability early in life. She lived in Hastings, England, with her adoptive father, Shaun Jenkins, her stepmother, Lois, and her younger sisters. From the outside, the family looked ordinary. A modest home, a quiet street, nothing that suggested violence. But inside, Billie-Jo struggled to feel fully safe, fully understood. Like many teenagers, she was searching for her place in the world, and for people who truly saw her. That Saturday began like any other. Billie-Jo spent time inside the house, doing chores, talking briefly with her sisters. At some point in the afternoon, she went outside to the backyard. The backyard was not hidden or isolated. It was open, visible, ordinary. At around 3:30 p.m., Billie-Jo was found lying near the patio. She had been brutally attacked. Her skull was fractured. Her injuries were severe. There were signs of a violent struggle. Emergency services were called, but it was already too late. Billie-Jo Jenkins was pronounced dead at the scene. She was 14 years old. Shock moved faster than understanding. Neighbors gathered. Police sealed the area. Questions filled the air. Who would do this? How could this happen in broad daylight? And why here? Investigators noticed something unsettling. There were no clear signs of forced entry. No obvious weapon left behind. No clear trail leading away from the yard. This wasn't a random attack in a dark alley. This happened at home, and that realization shifted everything. Very quickly, attention turned to the people closest to Billie-Jo. Her adoptive father, Shaun Jenkins, was inside the house at the time of the attack. He claimed he heard nothing unusual. That alone raised eyebrows. Then came the observations that would shape the case for years. Investigators believe his reaction was wrong. Too calm. Too controlled. There were inconsistencies in his statements. Small details that didn't line up cleanly. And most damaging of all, there was blood found on his clothing. The idea took hold rapidly. What if the killer never left the house? Within days, suspicion hardened into certainty for some. Shaun Jenkins was arrested and charged with Billie-Jo's murder. The courtroom became a battleground of interpretation. The prosecution painted a picture of sudden rage, a domestic argument, a moment that spiraled into violence. They focused on behavior, tone, timing, psychology. But there was a problem. There was no murder weapon, no eyewitness, no clear forensic evidence placing Shaun Jenkins at the moment of the attack. The defense argued the case was built on assumptions, not proof. They said investigators had locked onto one theory too early and ignored everything else. Still, in 1998, the jury found Shaun Jenkins guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison. For many, the case was closed. For others, it had only begun. Almost immediately, cracks appeared. Independent experts raised concerns about the forensic analysis. The blood patterns did not clearly support the prosecution's version of events. Questions emerged about how evidence had been collected, about what had been overlooked, about whether tunnel vision had taken over the investigation. Years passed. Then, in 2004, the conviction was overturned on appeal. The court ruled the original trial was unsafe. Shaun Jenkins walked free, but freedom did not mean peace. The case was still officially unsolved, and Billie-Jo's killer was still out there. For Billie-Jo's biological relatives, there was no closure. They believed justice had slipped away. For Shawn Jenkins, life became a permanent shadow, cleared in court but not in public opinion. And for Billie-Jo, her name became a headline instead of a person. Years turned into decades. Technology advanced. Cold cases reopened, but this one remained stubbornly silent. The turning point came quietly. Advances in DNA technology allowed investigators to re-examine old evidence, including samples that had once been considered useless. One profile stood out. It did not belong to anyone in the Jenkins family. It matched a man living outside the UK, with connections reaching into the United States. A man with a history of violence. A man who had been near the area at the time. Slowly, carefully, authorities rebuilt the case, this time from the ground up. No assumptions, no shortcuts, just evidence. In 2023, more than 25 years after Billie-Jo's death, the truth finally surfaced. The DNA match was confirmed. The man responsible had no place in Billie-Jo's family. He was not her father. He was not someone she trusted. He was an outsider who crossed her path at the worst possible moment. The case was officially solved. There was no celebration, only relief, mixed with grief that had waited far too long. The Billie-Jo Jenkins case is not just about a murder. It is about how easily certainty can replace truth, how pressure can distort justice, how important it is to keep asking questions, even when answers seem obvious. An innocent man lost years of his life. A young girl lost her future. And a family lost decades to uncertainty. Justice, when it finally arrived, came quietly. Too quietly. Billie-Jo Jenkins was 14 years old. She was more than a case, more than a controversy, more than a name in legal history. She was a girl who deserved safety, who deserved to grow up, who deserved better from the systems meant to protect her. Some truths don't disappear. They wait. And when they finally surface, they remind us of something simple and painful. Justice delayed is never harmless. It leaves scars.